Namaste. Thanks for joining me again for another asana a day. Today we're going to work on Utthita Pārśvakoṇāsana and Pārśvakoṇāsana. So what you'll need is a mat and a chair and a block, or if you have two blocks, that's great, but not necessary. So what we're going to do is we're going to do Utthita Pārśvakoṇāsana together to start. And then we're going to look at a few explorations that are going to teach us the actions of the legs and the arms and the body in various ways to apply that to the pose, to make the pose more accessible to us so that we understand the actions of the pose better, or the movements of our body within that posture. So, let's start in the center of our mat in Tadasana. So I'm going to put a block behind me, and I'm going to mirror you as we move into the pose. So I'll be giving the directions for you, even though I'll be going to the other side. If you just have one block, put it on the right-hand side behind you. And from your hips, press straight down into your heels and into the earth. And see if you can keep the ball of the foot rooted onto the floor, but lift your toes up and let them move. The toes should be free. Most of your weight is funneling down into your heels. The ball of the foot is grounded. Good. So we're going to breathe in and stretch the arms up, breathe out, step the feet apart, nice wide step, and turn your right foot 90 degrees. I'm going to step my right foot a little bit more to the right to honor the width of my hips. In other words, when I turn my foot out, I don't want to have my heel aligned with my arch, which feels like standing on a tightrope. For many people, that can be fine. But if you have wider hips, it can unhinge your sacroiliac joints and make the pose feel really caught and stuck and give you some pain, and can even injure your SI joints. So I'm inviting you to explore this action. Walk your right foot a little toward the right half of the mat so that your legs are in line with their own hips. I'm swinging the left heel out a little bit towards the back end of the mat so that this left thigh rotates a little bit and my two halves of my hips go together, turning a bit to the right. Your chest is going to face the long end of the mat, right? You're extending your arms out over the two legs. Anchor into your back leg, root down into the earth, so that you can bend the front knee to your ankle. Right? So just sitting the hips down toward the earth. And I'm slowly creeping my front foot out a bit so I can sit a little deeper. You may choose to have a shorter step or a bigger step, but just keep that knee over the ankle. Don't let it go ahead of the ankle toward the toes. Then from here, we're going to move from your right hip socket out over that front leg. And you can place your forearm on your thigh the way I have done. And for the moment, just put your left hand on your hip. Or you can reach down and place your hand on your block and adjust that block height for what works best for you. And we don't want to feel crunched. We don't want to feel caught and stuck. That's why if we go all the way to the floor, that may pull us out of alignment. Good. And then from that back foot, rooting into the earth, reaching out from the hip and rooting into the earth, we're going to extend the top arm over the ear, if that's okay for your shoulders. If not, the hand can stay on your hip, or it could go straight up or overhead. And enjoy this wonderful opening through your left side. Breathe into that. Good. Your front knee should be in line with the ankle and the hip in its track. You can look down. You don't want your front knee moving toward the big toe side of the foot. You want it to move toward the little toe side of the foot. Good, then let's come up. Push the floor away with your front heel. Breathe in and come back up. Turn the feet back to the front and you can realign them. If you have one block, just move that over to your left side. And then we're going to breathe in and breathe out. Stretch the arms out. Turn your left foot 90 degrees. Walk your left foot a little to the left half of the mat to feel this freedom of movement in your lower back and your hips. And that may just take some time and some exploration for you to observe that and notice how that feels. I'm swinging my back heel out to the back half of the mat so that my back foot is at a 45-degree angle-ish from this original position. This just allows my hips to turn and cooperate with each other and not fight against each other, which makes for happy sacroiliac joints. Good. So anchor down into that back foot, root into the earth so that as you bend your front knee, all of your weight just doesn't go rushing forward. You stay anchored in your back leg. Good. And you can take a wider step and sit lower, or a shorter step, and maybe your energy today needs a shorter step, or your how stable you feel maybe needs a shorter step. That's up to you. But keep that knee at the ankle and not over the toes. Good. So your chest stays facing this Tadasana direction. Good. And then we're going to move from the left hip socket, extending the torso out over that front leg. Just check your knee. Make sure it's not coming in toward the big toe, but moving in the direction of the little toe, which will actually just keep it in its track between the ankle and the hip. And then if you would like, you can place your hand on a block at whatever height works best for you. Maybe up a little higher. You can even have a chair behind you. And as you reach out through that back hip, through the leg and into the earth, we're going to extend the right arm over the ear in a nice long line through the torso and continuing on into that back leg. They're reaching the fingertips of the right hand and the right foot are reaching away from each other. Breathe into that nice open right side. Good. And in terms of your head, you can keep your chin in line with your sternum. That will almost always help you with your neck. Eventually, things begin to open up and rotate and the head can turn. And you will see sometimes people are looking at the ceiling, but really listen to your neck to find out if that's okay for you. So to come up, we're going to push the front heel down, breathe in and sweep your top arm up, turn the feet back to the front, and we'll step together in Tadasana. And just take a moment to notice how that feels. Good. So now we're going to look at a few explorations that are going to help us learn how to use our legs and our arms. So take a block, and I did this in a couple of other videos, but it's such a good experience. I think we can repeat it over and over again. Feet are parallel. Make sure they're not turned out, right? I'm letting the space from the base of the big second toe to the center of the ankle. I'm drawing an imaginary line, and those lines are parallel with each other. And if you lift up your toes as we did earlier, your weight is funneling mostly through your bones and into your heels, right? The ball of the foot is grounded. Toes are completely free and light. Good, so the heel, that very dense, heavy bone in the foot, is that way because it bears most of our weight. And it allows the other finer bones of the feet to be used for other types of things like movement and change of direction and balance. So from here, imagine from your hips, you're pushing down through the bones of your legs, through your heels into the earth. You'll feel like you're growing taller. Squeeze the block. And you don't have to like squeeze it 100%, but just move into that block. Hold it there. If somebody was going to pull it out, they would meet some resistance. Good. So you should feel like from your hips down, you're very stable, very strong, rooted into the earth. And from the hips up, very light, ascending, open, tall. Good. So from here, we're going to inhale and take the left arm, I'm mirroring you, left arm up. As I reach my left arm up, I'm going to really focus on pressing down through the left heel. Pushing my left heel down, I'm still squeezing that block, I'm not letting it fall out. I'm going to reach up through my right arm. So you can see my right side is getting longer. This feels a little bit like there's something on a shelf high up in the pantry that I want to reach. So I kind of push down through the left side as I reach up with the left hand. And let that side grow longer. And you'll start to feel your other side is condensing just a little bit. Good. And then exhale, and we'll bring it back down. Standing in Tadasana, just notice how this feels in the two halves of the body. And then let's do the other side. Inhale your left arm up. Right hand, I'm mirroring you. Right arm comes up. Press down through your right heel. Push the floor down as you reach up through your right hand. Grow really long through that right side. Your other side, your left side, is condensing a little bit. Just a little bit. And I'm not really actually trying to do that. It's just through the reach of this side, the other side kind of pulps up a little bit. Good. So let's let that right side really open. Inhale, and then we'll exhale the arm down. Good. So I'm going to take the block out and just experience Tadasana without that support. It's sort of the residue of that block is there. In some ways, I don't even really feel like I'm trying to squeeze something, but that action has been awakened. And I know now if I want to be really strong and stable in the earth, my legs know how to kind of light up to make that happen. Good. So let's just move the block out of the way and grab a chair. So I'm going to sit more on the front edge of the chair, not really back in the chair. And I'm taking the feet and turning them out. So if I started out like this with my knees and my toes aligned, facing straight ahead, I'm going to turn the toes and the knees out and step the feet apart as wide as I comfortably can. Place your hands on the insides of the knees. And you're sitting up tall, so don't roll back on your sitting bones, don't collapse back towards the back of the chair. You're actually still in Tadasana, the mountain pose, as you stand upright on your sitting bones and press the inner thighs out. Just take a breath here. Good. And we could do that also. I demonstrated that palms pressing in, so I'm guessing you probably did the same. Let's turn it out and do it this way. Good. So in terms of the legs, it's not much different, but in terms of how the arms are being used, it feels different. And it's also different in the shoulder blades. So here, my shoulder blades are slightly sliding around the sides of the ribs, away from the spine. Here, my shoulder blades are really gliding down the rib cage and in. They're really anchoring and opening up the chest. Good. So from here, we're going to move from your left hip out over that front leg. So this is similar when we did the posture a few moments ago to that movement of moving in the hip socket, letting your torso come out over that leg. I'm reaching this leg away, the opposite leg. And as I place the left forearm against the inner thigh, and not all the way at the inner thigh, and not right at the top, but sort of at an angle here. And I'm putting some pressure on the leg, inviting it, encouraging it, and reminding it to go back, right? So, and not only does it invite that leg to, open up the inner thigh, but it allows me to rotate my torso away from that leg. So just have your right hand on your hip as your left arm presses into your left leg and you spiral away. You're spiraling toward the right. I'm totally confusing you because, no, I think I got it right. I'm sorry. All right, so you're leaning out over your left leg, left arm over the left leg, and you are spiraling to your right. I am mirroring you. Got to remind myself of that. You can try with that opposite hand, your right hand, extending that up and over your ear. So really let that right side open up. Good. And then we'll reach the arm in a big arc back and inhale and come upright. And then we'll go to the other side. So from this right hip, we're going to extend the torso out over the right leg and just place your forearm at an angle on that thigh, pressing the thigh back. This thigh is reaching away. And then we're also using that pressure, that little bit of leverage to rotate the spine away from the leg. So I'm kind of opening away from the leg, away from the floor. And I'm, depending on how your neck is with this, we tend to turn a little bit further than the chest, but if you have any neck issues, it's always a good idea to line your chin up with the center of your chest, with your sternum, and keep your chin low. And that's usually a good plan in terms of safety and keeping the neck safe and happy and out of pain. If it feels okay to just continue to turn, you can do that. So letting the chest lead, and then the head may go a little bit farther. And if your shoulder is okay with this, you can take the arm overhead. So you're really opening up through that left side now. I'm reaching this left hip down into the seat as my arm extends away. And breathing. And then with an in-breath, you can push down through your right heel, reach up through your left hand. Breathing in, come back to the front. And we'll step the feet back together in front. And we're going to come up and try Utthita Pārśvakoṇāsana again. So press through your heels to get up out of that chair. Let's move the chair out of the way. And you can place your blocks back behind you. Good. And with an in-breath from Tadasana, let's take the arms up and step the feet apart. Turn the right foot 90 degrees, and you can walk that foot off to the right half of the mat as you're listening to your hips, listening to your lower back to find sort of this happy place, place of freedom. Swing your back heel towards the back edge of the mat a bit and extend your arms out over each leg. Good. Anchor into your back leg. So remember when we were in Tadasana, squeezing that block and pressing down through the heels? This hip is pressing out through the leg, into the heel, into the earth. It's a very strong hip, strong leg. The inner thigh is also slightly squeezing that imaginary block. Good, so that's very stable, very strong. Maintain that as you soften your front knee. Soften that front knee, sit down into the hips towards the floor. And then we're going to spiral or rotate or roll over the head of that femur bone as we extend our torso out over that front leg. And you can place your hand on the block if you like. You can keep your forearm on your thigh. But whichever one I'm doing, I'm not dropping my weight into it. I'm strong in my legs, okay? The hands are just meeting this surface or this surface here. And if you're using the arm, you can do what we just did in the chair, which is to press the thigh back so that you can spiral away from it. If you place your hand on the block, this front leg can move into your arm, drawing this hip in, deep in, so it's not sticking out behind you, which will make your front knee move toward the little toe side of the foot. Those are all directions you can kind of think about. Good, so you're spiraling the torso away from the floor, and if your shoulder would prefer a hand on the hip, you can do that, or you can take it straight up, or more classically over the ear, palm facing the floor. And feel this nice opening through that whole left side. Press that back foot down and keep the inner thigh squeezing its imaginary block. Good, let's come up. Press with your front heel. Inhale, back up. Turn back to the front. Realigning my feet. Switch your block over to the left side if you have one block. And then we'll turn the left foot 90 degrees. Walking my left foot a bit to the left just to give my hips a little space. You can see I just walked my right foot to the right a bit. And swing the back heel out to the back end of the mat. Good. So anchor, root out from your hips, through your legs, into the earth. Be strong, particularly in that back leg. Just knowing that that inner thigh of that back leg can be slightly squeezing that imaginary block. Maintain that as you soften the front knee and sit the hips down toward the earth. And then pivoting around in that left hip socket, you're going to come out over the front leg. If your shoulder does not like this position with the top arm, just keep your hand on your hip. You can use your forearm to press that front thigh back toward the wall behind you, really drawing the hip into its socket, and that helps you to spiral away from the floor. You're spiraling your rib cage away from the floor. You can place your hand on a block if you prefer. And in that case, this thigh is moving into the arm. Good, and then I'm going to extend my top arm over the ear, palm facing the floor. Strong legs, that back inner thigh is pressing into its imaginary block as the feet push down into the floor. Strong and stable legs. Breathe. Enjoy that opening through your right side. And we're going to come up by pushing the floor down through the front heel, inhaling up, turn your feet back to the front, and we'll step together. Take a nice breath and observe the residue of Utthita Pārśvakoṇāsana. Okay, so I did promise Pārśvakoṇāsana, which is, Pārśvakoṇāsana is the extended side angle pose. Pārvrita is that pose revolved. So we have this revolved aspect to it. So what I'm going to do to teach this is take both blocks to one side, and I'm going to stand in between the blocks, right? So if you just have one block, let's see, if I'm going to mirror you, I'm going to try to do the instructions mirroring you. So we're going to take the left foot back first. And so what I'm going to do, what you're going to want is to have your block on that left side, okay? So if you're standing facing the short end of your mat and you only have one block, put it on the left-hand side. And we're going to come forward and place our hands on the block, and we're going to step the left foot back. So what you want to be careful about is if your blocks were here and you're lunging and reaching ahead, we don't want that. Bring them back by your ankle, okay? The blocks can be at any height. Of course, you don't need to use blocks unless you need them, right? So your hands can be on the floor. Blocks are nice because they give us just a little bit of space to explore in. So my back foot is in a lunge, so my toes are curled under, my heel is reaching back, the back thigh is lifting up. I'm sitting the hips down toward the floor. And then we're going to keep the left hand down, put the right hand on the hip, and turn toward the right leg. So we're spiraling, we're twisting. And you want to be careful not to take your torso back toward the wall behind you, but draw the torso in toward the front leg. Keep the back thigh lifted up. Keep your hip of your front leg reaching back toward that foot of the back foot. Press down through your front heel. And if you aren't using a block, you would have your hand on the floor, hand on the block is fine. Your right hand can be on your hip, or it can go overhead, palm facing the floor. And then we'll turn back to the floor, back towards your front foot, and we're going to hop that back foot up just a little bit so we can feel the power in that front heel and step that back foot up. I'm just going to hang forward in Uttanasana, but you could certainly come to Tadasana, standing upright. We're just going to switch sides here. So I'm going to step the right foot back now. And again, I'm mirroring you, so keep that in mind. And my right heel, my right knee is directly over my left knee is directly over my left heel, and so that my shin is perpendicular. I'm sitting the hips down toward the floor, reaching out through my back heel, keeping the back thigh high. Good. So you're going to keep your right hand either on the block or on the floor, and put your left hand on your hip and turn towards your front leg. Be careful not to spread the front leg out to the left and your torso back toward the wall behind you, but bring them in toward the midline. So remember when we were standing in Tadasana, squeezing that block, this front thigh has a block that it's squeezing. The back thigh is pressing up toward the ceiling, and if you like to extend your arm over your ear, you can. Pārśvakoṇāsana, the revolved side angle pose. And then we'll turn back to the front, back towards our front foot. Hop your back foot up just a bit, and then push down through that front heel so you can bring the back leg up, and let's hang forward in Uttanasana, standing forward bend. Keep your knees straight here, so you may need to use blocks to have your hands on. Let your head hang, release the base of the skull away from your shoulders. And keep your weight more into the ball of the foot so that you're not reaching your hips or dropping them back behind your heels, but they're actually, your legs are vertical. You worked hard, so let's take this Uttanasana to just kind of cool the heart, cool the head, cool the nervous system. You could also be doing this with a chair, like your hands on a chair or even your forehead on a chair. And then we're going to come up. So bend your knees and reach your hips back as if there's a chair back there you're going to sit in. Press down through your heels. Breathe in and come up. And stand in Tadasana for a moment. Just allow the energy to flow through you. We've really worked the legs and hips, which frees up a lot of internal movement. So, this is Utthita Pārśvakoṇāsana and Pārśvakoṇāsana. Thanks for joining me for those two poses. Have a lovely day. Namaste.